How are you doing? Presumably not well after that one. Leeds United losing out 0-1 to Sunderland, and probably a result maybe we didn't expect at the start of proceedings. It is what it is. It happens in football, doesn't it? Leeds really poor, really poor. I don't think we deserved to win that game. Nowhere near it, and it's two losses on the bounce at home, which in context doesn't sound great, does it? After what a fortress Ellen Road has been, and strangely enough, two losses under the lights as well, or under the leaks. Is there any point in getting like overreactionary about this? Of course, there's not. But football is a reactive game. When you're a content creator, you react to things happening. It's a very strange concept, I know, to some, but yeah. We mentioned in the preview very early on, myself and Gabe did a show, and I severely disagreed with Gabe, and there seemed to be this sort of line that when you're looking at the opposition manager, and obviously looking at Daniel Farker and what he puts out there, there's just an agreement with what Farker will do, which is fine because it's getting results at this moment in time. But for me, there has to be a little bit more. When you're up against Sunderland, and for example, Gabe was saying that there should have been 2-6 in this game and a number 8, for me, that doesn't need to happen when they're going to sit in a low block. It doesn't make that much sense. Sunderland will do that at Ellen Road. You know, they've not got some of their best hitters available. And I wanted us to go for 2-8s in that game. And what I mean by 2-8s is Aronson in that central midfield with Ampadu and Anton Stack. That's what I wanted at the start of the game. We mentioned it on the preview. We mentioned it on the preview with Gav Henderson from the Roker Report. And we mentioned it with the show with Gabe. 2-6s for me made no sense. It made Leeds way too defensive, way too passive. And ultimately, what we do see with the Sunderland midfield is a press. You will see a little bit of a press, don't get me wrong. And they went man for man in that first half when Leeds were trying to play out from the back with a back three, like we see when we're trying to build up all the time. Sunderland stuck, I think it was Siddiqui, I think it was Diarra and Mienda on our back three. That's what they did. So Leeds couldn't play out from the back. So what would we naturally do? When we did kind of get past the press, we won't be able to get past that next phase as well because they were pressing us quite aggressively in there. So we would end up being back at Carl Darlow a lot of the time because the players, in my opinion, weren't being brave enough. There wasn't a player to take on a man. There wasn't a player to jink his shoulder and get beyond something. It was just very passive, very predictable. And I'm not saying it was a game for Buonanotte, but I think in a and it's a very rogue shout, but a player maybe of his level, in comparison to maybe a Joel Peru coming on later on, I think a Buonanotte, at least in that sort of number 10 role, you'd hope can maybe supply those body mechanics to be able to, roll the shoulder and, low center of gravity, good balance and be able to maybe do something in the last sort of 10 to 20 minutes. I don't know when you're doing the Hail Mary. I don't understand the point in bringing Joel Peru on a football pitch in the Premier League. Makes no sense. And he's doing absolutely nothing for his value right now, by the way, especially when he's coming on and trying to do 20-yard volleys and nearly hitting the corner flag when we need to retain possession in the last 5 minutes. But it's not Peru's fault. Of course it's not. And there's many problems here when it comes to Leeds. I thought Farker got this completely wrong in this game. I thought the setup was naive. I think the reason he'd done it is because it had bred relative success, obviously, in terms of Leeds being tough to beat. But once again, Sunderland's midfield was, I thought, really aggressive. And this is what I've always said with Gruev. And this is kind of what I'm vindicated with when it comes to Alaya. It is a lot of, against Nottingham Forest, their midfield fell back really on the defenders' toes. It consistently kept happening, which meant that Leeds United had a lot of availability in the midfield to be able to carry the ball. We didn't have that against Sunderland tonight. And I've always said this, when Alaya Gruev is pressed, he turns into a crab. He doesn't want the ball at his feet. He will try to get rid of the ball very, very quickly. And naturally, he'll either go laterally or backwards. And you were seeing too much of it in the first half. Way too much of it. And in that first half as well, we couldn't get beyond their press whatsoever. It was all just filtering back. The ball would then go long. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was isolated by himself. And this is the problem that we saw, pre-Villa and those Brighton games where you saw Dom up against centre-back, sometimes in a back three, like up against Brighton down at the Amex. You saw him up against the back three by himself and there was no player around him. And then it's very, very difficult for him to do anything. You immediately saw when Mecha came onto the pitch. Mecha, I thought, was really good when he came on. I thought he was trapping the ball well. I thought he was being physically combative against Ballard. He put Ballard on the floor in one instance, but it's too little too late. Again, with Farker's substitutions. So the problem with Daniel Farke's substitutions and the problem as to why in general we have an issue with is in-game management, because it's like scripted, and when it becomes scripted, other managers know that it's scripted and they can play against that. They can be able to devise game plans against that because it's predictable what you're going to do. It's predictable how you're going to start. You know, and that's exactly what happened. You saw Kim Hellberg, it's another reference, and Borough were playing Birmingham City the other night. And out of nowhere, Kim Hellberg turned from a back four into a back five. And it completely turned Chris Davis's game plan, the Birmingham head coach, on its arse. And they ran ragged and they kept getting in on that left hand side with Matt Target because Chris Davis didn't expect it. He expected Borough to go with a back four. That is kind of the unpredictability that you have with the plethora of options that Leeds have on the bench and the different profiles that you have on the bench. But when you come into a game like this at Ellen Road, where you know the opposition, with the injuries that they've got, are going to sit in a low block with a relatively aggressive press as well from the front, you need to devise a game plan against that. There needs to be some strategy, and there wasn't any strategy today. It was Dan James came on and we were just filling the ball down that right hand side and pumping the ball into the box. That was the plan when James came on. Peru was just on for another attacking body in the box. Go on, you scored 19 goals last season. Just throw you in the box. But the start of the game, we're not moving chronologically here, but I think the upsetting thing for me during this game is the two things, really, with the greatest of respect. You've got a rookie goalkeeper coming in for one of the best goalkeepers in the division this season, Robin Roofs. You've got Elborg coming in, and we didn't test him until the 37th minute. He had a nice little save from Stack from a free kick, which he just had to get down quite easily for. And then, aside from that, we didn't do anything. We didn't do it. So you're not testing him. Shaky from the back in terms of his kicking when he had to come out and distribute. And Leeds haven't tested him once. We're not getting to the edge of the area, so we're not able to bypass a press. You're not getting players being brave. You're not kicking the ball to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and surrounding him. This is the kind of age-old adage we've had when we've had problems this season. You clip the ball to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, you bypass that midfield press of Siddiqui, of Diarra, of Lefay, of whoever it is. You bypass that. We're doing that in the game at Stadium of Light, by the way, not just playing through them. But you bypass that, you get it into Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Aronson gets round him, Stack gets round him, you feed off that second ball. We've done that at Ellen Road this season. I don't know why in this game. This is why Farke got it wrong. He didn't. I thought he started the wrong team in terms of not starting an additional 8 and going favouring 2 sixes. Way too defensive. You had 8 defenders on the pitch at points, and you're trying to ask Leeds to be efficient going forward. It's the fear of losing the game in comparison to the want to win it. And that's what the problem was with Daniel Farke's selection tonight for me. I know a lot of people say, well, this has bred continuity and momentum and success. It has, but when you're up against Sunderland, and for one of the first times this season, we've been one of the favourites up against Sunderland with the amount of injuries they've had and maybe their away form. They've not had many away wins, by the way, guys, this season. That's probably their first away win in a long time, maybe since Chelsea away, which was back when. They had a very comparable away record to us. I think we're on the same points. They've now just beaten us at Ellen Road. So we didn't test Elborg. We actually, and this is '09 got a booking, Luke '09, and I've never been a fan of Luke '09. I think he's quite a basic footballer. He's not tall. I think he plays the referee quite well, but he's not tall. He's a pretty average footballer. And Luke '09 in that game has been on a yellow card for about 60 minutes, and he's got man of the match at the end of the game, and we've not tested him. So you've not tested the goalkeeper. You've not tested Luke '09, who is a auxiliary right back and doesn't get into their first team, hasn't really got an abundance of pace, isn't strong. I don't think reads the game that well. You've not tested him whatsoever. Why haven't we? Why haven't we brought a winger on earlier up against Luke '09 and got the ball funneled down that side more often with more volume? So then he's tested, and then he might give another a foul away again, which he's also used to doing when he plays. There is fouls when it comes to Luke '09, stuff like that. Why are we not talking about that in the change room? Why at half time is there not 2 attackers going on? Why when Dominic Calvert-Lewin, let's be straight, is getting dominated by Alderete and Dan Ballard up top when we rarely feed the ball into him? But when we do in the air, he's getting dominated because those two are monsters and have been monsters when it's come to aerial duels this season. Why do you not put Metra up? Metra then comes on and actually looks more physically imposing than what Dominic Calvert-Lewin has done. His first action is to bounce Dan Ballard onto the ground and get Leeds into a really good spot, of which Jayden Bogle decides to try and shoot from 30 yards when he's got grass in front of him. And that's kind of another thing that this today was. It felt tired, it felt leggy, but I'm not using that as an excuse because there was rotation availability on the bench to switch things round, of which Sunderland had, but Sunderland had a lot of injuries as well going into this game, and players who should have been available but weren't available. Michele, Xhaka, who was on the bench, Robin Roofs, to name a few, you know? So there was really no excuses going into this game, and it felt like a real opportunity for Leeds, a real opportunity. And at least if you're not going to win the game, don't lose. And we've lost the game. But it was very passive. It felt like one of the championship games we've played, and it felt highly championshipy today. One of the championship games we've played where Leeds are just not able to break down like a low block, and we're pushed back to our goal. And that's exactly what happened in this game. And Leeds had no answer. There was no game plan. There was no strategy. I thought actually toward the back end, and once again, not working chronologically, Beal came on, immediately offers us something from set pieces. Can somebody tell me in the chat why he's not starting? Can somebody tell me? Can somebody tell me? Like at the minute, what Joe Rodon offers above Yakabil, it's not an agenda thing against Joe. I love Joe. I mention this all the time. I'm nearly 33 years of age. I don't have agendas. Okay. You know, I want the best for my football club. At the minute, the best for my football club is having Yakabil on ahead of Joe Rodon. Joe Rodon, I don't think he's having a great spell at the minute. I don't think looks great. Oh, and Yaka is a better player. So Yakabil comes on, and immediately, like the Man City game from a set piece. He was dangerous. He got his head on 3 set pieces that came in the last 8 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, I believe it was. One of which he hit the post, didn't he? And immediately he's a threat. We looked turgid from set pieces all night. That's dropped off a cliff, by the way. I don't know what's going on with us in set pieces anymore. Maybe it's because Yakabil's not on the pitch. 6'4" centre back, who's probably the biggest player physically on our team. Maybe get him in there. I always say this, but can we vary maybe Anton Stack getting in the box with the amount of aerial duels that he wins? Can we just change things a little bit at points so it's not that predictable? And once again, guys, this is based on a football match. It's not based on the general season. Leeds have been really decent this season, but this is why, and I always say we'll be okay, but this is why I'm still really not there yet with a lot of people, and people have been saying to me, Connor, how are you not there with us staying up yet? It's not just because of this game. It's just because I think I'm just, I still think there's a long way to go. I still think there's a long way to go here. And I've always maintained that this isn't a reactionary thing. You guys know, if you've watched me on other shows, we're on our other podcast the other day, Proper Football. They're all, Jimmy and Callum are saying to me, surely, Connor, how can you not say this? How can you not say that? Pre-Man City game. And I'm saying, I'm just not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm not fully expecting. I can't put my, flag in the sand and say like Leeds are staying up. I'm just not there yet. So yeah, disappointing to me. It was a passive first half, relatively leggy. Let's talk about the penalty, which is just another shit show of a moment from the referee and VAR, and it's slowly becoming a thing in my head where I don't want to. Should we just like start a channel like One Leeds Water Polo or something like that, where we don't have to rely on having to go and scream at the referees with the contradiction that they don't want you to scream at the referees because then they'll brandish yellow cards and red cards. The Strauch incident in the first half is one of the biggest penalties you'll ever see. That because we don't scream at the referee, the example in game, so we had the Villa game where it was either Rodon or Ampadu, I need to go check, was dragged down in the box. It was either Rodon or Ampadu went up to the referee. No other player did anything, wasn't checked. Then you go to the City game, whatever people think, I thought it was a penalty from Matheus Nunes, and there was 3 or 4 Leeds players who saw it. There wasn't an aggressive enough call to the referee, because unless you go and berate the referee and tell him and get in front of his face, as we saw with the Sunderland goal, because he wasn't going to give that, but as soon as you had a host of Sunderland players around him, he's thinking, oh shit, maybe that isn't. Is it VAR are checking it? We also had it obviously with the Gruev incident. We absolutely know that if that was the other way, if it was Manchester City, for instance, there'd be 6 or 7 of those players going in around the referee. That would be checked. And there's probably a likelihood Gruev would have been sent off if it was the other way on Shirky. Shirky had rolled around a little bit. Gruev kind of went, that was it. There's not enough gamesmanship from Leeds, which we love because we're an honest, respectful team. But you got to play the rules of the Premier League, and you saw that in full effect today with the gamesmanship that Sunderland were displaying throughout the whole game. And then the Strauch incident when he gets choked by Luke 09, that is an out-and-out penalty. It's a joke how it's not been been given, but unfortunately you have to crowd the referee, get in his face, but we don't do it. We don't do it. We kind of have a half-hearted appeal, and we expect the referee to do his job well, but they don't do the jobs well because they're a joke. They're a joke in this country, and you saw another honking performance from the referee tonight, who it must be so easy to be a footballer. Do you know what I mean? If I'm a football player now, I was thinking this the other day. I mean, I was playing Sunday League the other day, and my centre back, captain of the team, young lad went down, and he's part of this like new wave of kids who are playing Sunday League, and he's kind of rolling around. And my centre back just said to him, "What's wrong with you?" And he went, "Oh, your knee clattered against mine, and you meant to do it." He went, "Get up, you tart. It's Sunday League. There's going to be a bit of contact." And it's just kind of you getting this new wave of just almost like play acting and trying to gain minutes and being able to play the referees. And you even see on Sunday League, that the referees buy it on Sunday League, and it's almost like it's filtering its way into grassroots as well. It's like a poison. And you saw it again today. And look, Sunderland, I thought their game plan, they nailed it today. Absolutely nailed it today. Came to Ellen Road, didn't have enough players available. They had players out, and they came to Ellen Road, got an away win. Congrats. And that's got Sunderland to what? 39 points? What a brilliant return for a first season. And they're staying up, and they've been able to do that. And congrats to Sunderland. But I've never seen a team on the floor like that at Ellen Road in my life. I've never seen a team do that sort of stuff. Whenever Leeds player even goes to contact, they're on the floor, they're rolling round. But then you've got to look at the man in the middle, and the man in the middle's got to be strong there. But he was weak as piss. And any time a Sunderland player went down, Leeds again a bit of momentum. You had Alderete chucking himself over 4 or 5 times in the game. Breakage in play. Atwell just allows there to be a breakage in play. It's not a head injury. He's just down on the floor. Breaking play. Bertrand Traore goes down, breaking play. Siddiqui goes down 2 or 3 times. Diarra goes down 2 or 3. It's all the same stuff. Luke O'Nine in the end. William Gnonto went for a ball. Luke O'Nine's head and Nonto's ass collided. Barely touch. Yellow card to Gnonto. Gnonto cannot do anything about it. But yet Luke O'Nine drags Strout down by the neck in the box. No card, no penalty. Do you know what, guys? This is why, when you look at it and you think about VAR and this whole debacle, you just think to yourself, do you know what? Just get rid of it all and just do the championship. But we know we can't, as in not go back to the championship, but the championship officiating. Just bring regular officiating back. But you can't do that either because they rely on VAR now. They're piss weak and piss poor at their jobs. So they rely on that now to get them out of stuff. So their practice has gone downhill. They get bullied by by football players. Referees and linesmen are bullied. They're bullied by football players, and it's embarrassing to watch. And it happened again today. Fair play to, if you can do it, you can do it. I don't like watching it. I think the ball's been in play today for about 30 minutes. I don't like watching it, but I'm looking at Alderete and Ballard refereeing that game, and Atwell allowing that to happen. And annoyingly, Leeds allowing that to happen as well. Us not refereeing the game, us not having that gamesmanship and nastiness to us that Sunderland have in Embers. And sometimes I think it's a City thing as well with the Gruev thing and the Nunes thing, which I know some of you guys didn't agree with in terms of the penalty. That's fine. I believe it was a penalty. And today with Strauch and the one at Villa, which was soft, but I still thought it was a drag down in the box from Ezri Konza. And you just look at it and you think, it's not fair. It's not fair. And then obviously we're hit with the sucker punch, aren't we? I didn't celebrate Rodon's goal because I said on the watch wrong, I went, he's offside. And then you kind of saw Rodon sheepishly go to the corner, and it felt like, I think he knew he was offside as well. And then they go to the other end. Leeds, no concentration. It's the first attack. We look vulnerable when we've scored, even though we've scored and it's been chalked off. And Ampadu, yeah, it's a moment of madness because he kind of just goes like that, doesn't he? He thinks the ball's going to drop to one of their players to have a strike. Ampadu kind of lifts his arm. Ball. And then the Sunderland players go mental. They all go mental. And do you know what? We need to take some lessons in that. All around the referee, shouting at the referee. Suddenly, then goes to VAR. VAR having a look at it, and it's going to be a penalty. Atwell goes and checks it, and then Carl Darlow. It's quite incredible. How he's not managed to save that. Diarra with one of the worst penalties you'll see this season down the middle, and it kind of goes off Darlow's leg and in the top corner, and you're thinking it's just not going to be our day. It was everything toward the end where it was put in Sunderland's box from Gnonto, from James, from Ampadu, whoever it was. it was ricocheting in Sunderland's favour. You know, there was something where Ampadu launched the ball into the box, header by Beale. You're thinking, here we go, straight down the gullet of Elborg, and that happened 2 or 3 times, and everything was just landing for Sunderland. It felt it just wasn't our day. But yeah, I think a lot of that was down to Farke. Look, we can talk about the referee, we can talk about Sunderland's gamesmanship, tactics, and all this sort of stuff, which obviously worked for them in the end. But that Farke got it wrong, and ultimately that's what you want to keep on. The referees just getting. I never used to talk about referees, but they're getting to a point now, unfortunately, where with my content they are becoming something I have to talk about, and that's how you know the shite, because you're having to talk about them all the time. Unfortunately, Farke got this wrong, though. I thought, he's making subs. I mean, they're bringing Xhaka on and they're bringing Bertrand Traore on in the 53rd minute. I knew Labrise would have a game plan here of having Xhaka on the bench because he was fit and started against Bournemouth, was on the bench. I knew he'd come on to serve a purpose. It was clearly low block. Xhaka comes on, gets them up the pitch maybe a little bit. But with Farke, it was just wait and wait and wait. And we were doing a countdown till the 60th minute. We said on the watch long that from the 45th minute to the 60th minute, there's going to be no change because the pattern of the game with the same players on the pitch was never going to change. Was never going to change. Maybe similar different instructions of getting the ball up quicker and being less passive, but that didn't really change. So me and the chat were just saying in the watch on, we're like, well, we'll wait because the game's actually going to start again on the 60th minute because we're going to bring subs on, so it's going to look a bit different and the strategy might change a little bit. But up until that point, it's just going to be the same. So you're kind of wasting, and we've seen this before with Farke, you're wasting like 15 minutes worth of time there to have Metro on, to have Nonto on, who I thought Nonto when he came on was good. I thought he was actually causing a little bit of action. I thought he was trying to go at them, and the balls into the box were relatively decent. He looked dangerous. I thought Beale was good when he came on. James was very 50-50. I thought Piru was crap when he came on. And Metro I thought was good when he came on. I thought Metro was good when he came on. So the subs overall did okay. But once again, it should have been earlier. It had to be earlier. The difference had to be earlier. There had to be 2 8s. There had to be 2 centre forwards to battle with Alderete and Ballard. And he kind of figured it out till the end. And I don't understand why it takes so long when the game's not changing. But anyway, let's get into your comments, everybody. See what you guys are saying. Presumably there's a fair few in here. Kicks of Intelligence became a member. Shout out to you, mate. Them Frames, good to see you in here, buddy. Way too conservative for a home game against a newly promoted side. Isolating DCL by having few creative options behind him is never a good idea. Poor choices on and off the pitch cost us tonight. And that's why, look, I'm not saying this is why with my lineup. Where was my lineup for this game? This is what I went for. I can tell you now because it's the custom lineup. This is what I said. Look, there we go. That was my team before the game. Connor's team versus Sunderland. We had this on the preview. This is what I would have gone for. You've got to have 2 8s in there. You've got to have a connector. If you're not going to have Buenanotte in there, you're going to have a connector between the midfield and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. You're going to have a connector. And then you can, if that's not working or it's not working with Dom, whatever, I think you can put Metro on, but at least you've got a connector in Nonto, and at least you've got runners in Stack and Aronson. Having just Aronson in that 10 and then Grove, it's just too defensive. It's too conservative. So I agree, mate. I agree with what you're saying there, definitely. Right, let's see what some of you guys are saying there in the chat. Anyway, PRM says, what is it with Sunderland having the knack of nicking results against us? Battered them at Stadium Malai, and a god-awful pen costs us right back in a dogfight now. Yeah, I mean, well, that's kind of how I think the rest of the league will see it as well. And it's, it's not to be glass half empty, but it's City, isn't it? And Sunderland. But the neutral will be looking at that and thinking, well, if West Ham win tomorrow night, let me just check this for a check. Oh my God, Wolves have got a point against Liverpool. Crazy stuff. Let's have a look standings wise. So if West Ham beat Fulham tomorrow, that takes them to 28. That's 3 points behind us. And this is what I mean. It's like you've got to consider, and this is because West Ham, and I'm not saying they will, by the way, but there's definitely a possibility they win tomorrow night. I think it's either going to be a draw or a win for West Ham. I could be wrong. I've been wrong multiple times before. Just got a bit of a feeling. I've been very cautious of saying it's all done. And I think there's been a lot of fans who are saying, yeah, it's done with sound. And I get it. I understand it. But We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. Conrad, I'm effing fuming. Farker says, Lofts, I agree, man. Yeah. PRM says, as soon as I saw the 11, I was a little worried. 28 Fender says, setting up with effectively a 3-6 home in a winnable match. That would all see us save as a joke. Such a wimp of a manager. Fender, this is kind of where I'm at as well, mate. And it feels like when we've had this, like, we've got the opportunity, haven't we? It felt like with Everton, we had an opportunity to extend the gap. You know, it was brilliant first half, and then the conservative second half, allowing Everton to come back in the game, and that was a point of which, if you remember where West Ham were, if Leeds had got 3 points, that would have been massive. It had taken us, I think it was about 8 or 9 points clear. Villa again. You know, I understand. I thought Villa was one of the more complete performances of the season again. But for the last 20, 25 minutes, we naturally sat back, didn't we? And we can't do that. And then on top of that, obviously, you've got the City game. Yeah, it is what it is. But then tonight, it just feels every time we have the option to extend, it's like it just keeps going against us. It feels like it's just going to be that maybe 5, 6 points or 4 to 6 points, or maybe even 3 to 6 points. Like game week swing right till the end, and that's what makes me a little bit nervous with us having West Ham at the end of the season. It does, guys. I'll be honest with you, it just does. I have to be authentic with you. It does. And maybe you can call that negative. I just see it as realistic. I look at the points difference, and I'm like, it's not that much. That's not that much. And this isn't like this. As I keep saying, it's not. It doesn't mean that Leeds are not going to stay up. Of course, it doesn't. That we've still got a favourable run in. Sunderland came to say Sunderland are a good team as well, by the way. They're a good team, especially with them all there. They've done very well this season to achieve 9 on 40 points already. So they're a good team. That doesn't have to be the tail of the tape for Palace, the tail of the tape for Brighton, Brentford, Wolves, Burnley. But what I would say is they might not be able to do it as effectively, but bet your bottom dollar. We've not played many low blocks this season. That was kind of a bit of a low block from Sunderland. You can bet your bottom dollar that Burnley and Wolves are going to come to Leeds and they're going to do exactly that. So we have to figure out a way, because a lot of our games have been, if we've been honest, a lot of our games have been, we've done really well against some excellent teams, haven't we, this season? We've done really well. We've managed to, and that's what we've been talking about, isn't it? We've been talking about getting a point at Villa, point at Everton, I guess, Man United, point at Liverpool, beating Chelsea, beating Palace, doing all these things. But have we ever come up against a team who've low blocked it, really? Now, that first Burnley game at Turf Moor, we had a lot of opportunities, didn't we? But they sat in. That was really the only game this season where I've looked at it and I thought, like we had in the Championship, a team has actually just sat in against us. So again, that's happened tonight, and they've had more success of just sitting in, pressing us a little bit, obviously with that man for man in that front three, I think, which they did really well, and it didn't allow Leeds to play out. But when they sat in, Leeds could not break them down. We couldn't break them down. So I guess my worry is, in a sense, we're going up against lesser teams, but maybe in that transitional game where teams are going to come at us, that leaves gaps for Leeds to be able to exploit teams from an attacking sense. We've low blocked a lot of teams this season. Obviously, not all of them. We've been good, haven't we? But we've been effective. We've been effective in doing that in some games. But what if teams do it against us? Then what? Are we able to pick the lock? Are we able to do that? Do we need to filter Buonanotte back into proceedings? Not because he's done anything astronomical, and not because he's a player who, I would start and all this sort of stuff right now, but he is a lot bigger. He's a number 10. And I'm not advocating for that. There's a different profile, isn't it? Is it better than throwing Joel Peru on? Probably. So it's going to be interesting, because we're coming up against teams in and around the bottom now who I think there's going to be a selection of them who low block against Leeds and try to do it effectively. So we've got to work against that now. We've got to kind of figure out how to not be the low blockers and how to pick the lock against the blockers. So that's going to be interesting. Random Yorkshireman says, officials shite as usual. But the game could have gone on for 10 years and we wouldn't have scored. Sunderland dark arse and rattled us. Yeah, Sunderland played the game well. They played the game well. Yorkshire says, robbed again by refs. Leeds 0, VAR 1. John says as well, I really hope this game doesn't drop our form too bad. The team needs to keep their heads up, all to play for, marching on together. Wolves have just won it. Oh, my God. God. Oh, they're coming up, aren't they? God. Yeah. See a couple more of your comments. See what you're saying. Matt says, I don't understand how he doesn't make the forward thinking approach to changing the strategy for the second half. Straight from the whistle. I don't get it either, Matt. It's very confusing, and he's got form of it, hasn't he? He's not a fan of the halftime sub. Like I said, we were actually in the watch on. We were giving him a hell of a lot of praise at the very start. We're saying he's done a magnificent job this season so far. He surprised me, Farker, but tendencies like this sometimes where he's open to criticism. His in-game management. He's been at fault before, even in the Premier League this season. He's been at fault before for being too passive in his changes and for maybe just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks. You see Peru coming onto a Premier League pitch, and then you see Beale coming on in the 83rd minute, and you know it's just like, well, what's the plan here? We're just throwing people on now, aren't we? More bodies, more fresh bodies to try and get a goal back. So I thought there was a little bit of ingenuity and strategy with Sunderland's play tonight, which followed a little bit more of a plan. I don't think Farker's game plan tonight was good enough, basically. SFC Jules has had no choice to low block half our teams out. I don't know if half your team's out, SFC Jules. I'm not sure it is. You got Makele out, haven't you? You've got Roofs out, and Xhaka came on, didn't he? I don't know if you've got half your team out. Still a very decent team at the end. But I know what you mean, and you had to come. Sunderland did a good job today, and all plaudits to them. Sunderland came to play for a draw today. They've absolutely schooled us. Yes, via dark arts, but why don't we do it ourselves? Exactly. And that's why you've got to give Sunderland praise. Sunderland have worked the referee. They've time wasted because the referees are incompetent. They will allow you to do that. They have, I think, in the first half they had a couple of opportunities where they looked a little bit dangerous with Ballard's header, a couple of headers, and they've sat in that second half and they've managed it well, managed it really well. So they've not. I don't think Sunderland will be looking at that game and thinking that was hard. If I'm honest with you, if I'm a Sunderland player coming out, I'm not thinking, oh my God, that was backs to the wall. God, how did we get through that? I don't think they're going to be thinking that. I think they're going to be thinking it was a structured job and we were disciplined and that was it. You know, I'm not saying they didn't have to work hard, but I don't think that was like a tough game for Sunderland to manage that. I really don't. James says we are right amongst it now. Players need to learn the dark arts. That is a pen in the first half every day of the week, but we don't have their nows to be in the rest phase. We don't, mate. Yeah, true. True, wee Carter. Yeah, forgot about Ronaldo and Broby. My bad. Yeah, forgot about those two. Yeah, true. All very true. Daft says, what you mean, mate? You think Farker can't lose a game, mate? Come on now. Farker has done great this season. This team is crap. Great character. I don't know what you mean there, mate. I'll be honest with you. Chris says, we got shithouse tonight and the ref let it happen. 2-2. Liverpool have scored right at the last minute. I just don't care anyway. Jason says at the ground, the crowd thought they were talking about giving the player a second yellow. We were shouting off. Nobody even saw Ampadu's handball. That's the beauty of VAR, isn't it, mate? The ones who were sat here on the TV, watching it on the TV, will always see before everybody in the crowd, won't they? So, yeah. Can't see Forest getting anything at City, so before, that's true. Charlie says players should have appealed for Diarra jumping into the crowd, celebrating a goal. Should have got a second yellow, but we don't appeal. They would have had 7 players. Do you know what, Charlie? It's not a bad point, that. It's not a bad point. I mean, their celebration for the goal, fair play to them, but it went on for about 10 minutes as well. But it's stuff like we are just not a dark arts team, and you can tell with Sunderland there, they absolutely are. Absolutely are. I mean, Alderete, yeah. Imagine if Ronaldo was playing. If you've not watched Ronaldo this season, he's all the way part of that as well. I mean, Broby's an absolute man mountain, so at least he tries to stay on his feet. But yeah, they have got that in their arsenal, and it's horrific to watch because I think the ball was in play genuinely for probably around about 50 minutes today, maybe even less, probably 38 minutes. Because it felt like Sunderland were going down all the time. But the referees allow it to happen. We're a very honest team, and it will hurt us. But the VAR decisions, Leeds have to get used to this. They've got to get used to it. They've got to get used to making big deals. And even when we're not going to get the decision, you've got to make big deals out of stuff like this. Decisions that I think in the last 3 games have not gone our way, we meekly appeal for them. "Oh, what about no, no, okay, ref." Sunderland decision, City get a decision. They're all around the referees, and we're just not good at that. We're just not good at it. Wolves won full time. There we go. Yeah. Oh, the narrative's starting already. The narrative's starting already. Here we go. If Leeds, Adam Crafton, is he at the Athletic? Yeah, Adam Crafton. Here we go. If Leeds find a way to go down, their decision makers will have a lot of answer to how they didn't add extra flair or firepower in January. There you go. Yeah, and look, they will. Obviously, they will. But yeah, I think the more frustrating that Farker was poor here. I think Farker was poor, and I think what frustrates the life out of me is I will always back his corner. I think when Willie Gnonto is given a chance, he has a level of quality that some of our players don't have, but he's never given the opportunity. And tonight, I thought he was given the opportunity. I thought he was good when he came on. He was direct. He was putting some decent balls into the box, better than flipping Dan James. Although Dan did put a really good ball into the box, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin just kind of stood and watched the ball instead of just diving in. But yeah, yeah. Farker, I think, has got to start maybe giving Nonso a few more opportunities. Got to start being a bit more unpredictable, Daniel. He's absolutely too predictable at points. Yeah, I absolutely hated that game tonight, though. I'm completely frustrated. It was an awful game of football, and I think it was made into that with the greatest of respect by Sunderland. They got a win. They played it in a way of which I hate watching. I hate that football. It's because it's not football. It's just stop start. It's crap. It's free kicks. It's hideous to watch. Um, and the dark arts and the shithousery were at top level, weren't they? I hate watching that sort of football. I don't enjoy it. So that's why I'm in a bit of a mood as well. We haven't won, but if that had been 0-0 or 1-1, I'd have been a foul mood as well because it's just crap to watch. But they did it. I understand the purpose of why they did it. But I think Sunderland are good enough to come to Ellen Road and give us a really good game. Honestly, even without starting 11, I think they're good enough to come and give us a really good game. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, they've won the game, so what am I waffling on about? But yeah, strangely enough, I think I was just looking forward to a good game tonight. And fucking hell, that was grim, grim. But it doesn't matter. They've come away with the victory. You know, it is what it is. Sunderland fans aren't going to care what I say about that, really. So, and I understand that. Completely understand that. But yeah, slightly worried, to be honest with you. I do not want us to get it down to the last day of the season where we've got West Ham. I don't want that to be a thing. We do make hard work out of this crap. We do make hard work. And we've got to figure out, I think we've got to figure out a way of coming up against the low block and trying to break it down. Oh God, well I guess we're not used to this. We weren't used to it before the last couple of days, were we? So look, I'm gonna go now. Slap a like on the video, everybody. The player ratings will be on the Patreon and we will be reading them out at some stage tomorrow. We do a bonus episode over there. If